Hello, pioneers, and welcome to your Intro to Excel module. So before we kind of dive right in, I do recommend that you go ahead and open up Excel on your end. It might be useful if you have two screens. That's great. Put Excel on one, put the video on the other. If not, you might want to watch the video on your phone while you work through the Excel spreadsheet on your laptop or computer, whatever works best for you. But as a reminder, to download an Excel copy, you're going to click on of any Google Sheet. You're going to click on File, Download, Microsoft Excel. Again, that is File, Download, Microsoft Excel. Okay. And keep in mind, you do have access to the full Microsoft suite through your Pioneer portal. So if you don't have Microsoft yet, it's time. Go ahead and download it through your Pioneer portal. I'm going to go ahead and download that now. Okay, once it's downloaded, go ahead and click Enable Editing. Perfect. So there are a few things that we want to make sure that we get a really good understanding of when it comes to Excel. So far in Accounting 1 and Accounting 2, there were a few opportunities where you were probably allowed to practice your Excel skills. You probably took a few classes on it back in high school, or if not, maybe you took your CGS class, your computer applications class here at the college. But just in case, it's very important as you're exiting Accounting 2 and moving on to managerial accounting that you have some pretty strong Excel skills, or at least you know how to get started with Excel. Because once you get into your next course, managerial accounting, it's very important that you use cell referencing whenever applicable, because it's going to be required in the grading of those assignments. So in order for us to get a little bit of a good understanding of at least the basics, we're going to be going over formulas, cell referencing, some very basic functions, and then the importance of order of operations. Okay. So first things first, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so it's a little bit easier for you to see. Okay. This first one here, practice scenario number 1A, we see that we have a 2 and a 4, and they're asking us to add these cells together. I know you can do that math in your head, but the important thing is that we understand how we can put this in so that if any of these numbers end up changing, so for example, let's say that this, instead of a 2 and a 4, we decided to change this 2 to a 5,692 and this 4 to a 6,245, that the system automatically updates. So for example, the first thing we're going to do is let's just talk about basic formulas. To do a formula in Excel, you're always going to start with an equal sign. Now, if I wanted to do math within that, like say the 2 plus 4 we were just referring to, I could type that 2 plus 4 on my keyboard and click enter, and it will do the math. It will tell me 6. However, this is where cell referencing comes into play. I want to refer to these cells in my formula. So instead of having the 2, let's click on cell C6. And instead of the 4, let's click on cell C7. And now you'll see that we have a different type of formula. It says equals C6 plus C7. And if we click enter on our keyboard, you'll notice it does the math. Which you might say to yourself, that's exactly what we did before with the 2 plus 4. Yes, but now I can change this to any number and it will automatically do the math for me. So if I have to make any updates, it'll recalculate this. When it comes to just simple addition, that might not seem very impressive, but sometimes we might have something that's a lot more advanced as a business or healthcare management or accounting or finance or marketing major out in the field, and that we need this to automatically update if we change the inputs, right? So yeah, I know you know how to do 2 plus 4 equals 6, but we need to be able to change it. So practice scenario B, I know I kind of spoiled it for you, but change the number in cell C7 to 10 and watch how your cell referenced output in cell C9 changes. So actually, let me go back there real quick. I want to show you how to edit a cell. There are a few different ways to edit a cell. Let's do a single click. So if I do a single click, you'll notice up here that it tells me in this formula bar what's in the cell. I could go ahead and change it up here, enter. I could also just, let me click off, click it once, and then just start typing 10, enter. That works as well. Or I could double click and you'll see I have my blinking cursor. I could change it manually that way. So there's a few different ways to be changing those cells. Okay. And that also works for our formula as well. For our cell reference that we have here, if we just click on it, we'll notice up here in the formula bar what the formula is. But what I always think is really cool, if we double click it, notice that it refers back to what cells I'm grabbing here. And Excel is very color-coded focused. So if we see here cell C6, it's in blue. You'll notice that cell C6, the one it's referencing, has a blue background and a blue border. And then here in cell C7, it's red. So you'll notice C7 has the red background, red border. And then if you ever need to get out of it, click enter. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make usually is if they're working on something, if they just finish, they'll start clicking around. Always click enter to go ahead and lock in that formula and return your output. Let's do practice scenario 1C. Here we're subtracting. So we're subtracting cell C20 from C19. So just like before, we're going to do the equal sign. And subtracting C20 from C19, that's 5 minus 1. So click on the 5. And if you want to, you can type in C19, but it's not very efficient. So I recommend clicking. So C19 minus sign 1. So now it'll do that math for you. And again, if I decide to change these numbers, okay, I got a little ambitious there. It'll do that math automatically for me. Practice scenario 1D. We're going to be doing multiplication. Again, let's start our formula with an equal sign. Click on the 8. And here's the part that we need to remember, the asterisk. So to do multiplication in Excel, we don't use an X, we use an asterisk. So this is that little star that you see on your keyboard. So 8 asterisk, click on the 7 for C28, and again, enter. And then division, equals, click on the 10, use a forward slash for division, click on the 6, and then enter. Now you'll notice 10 divided by 6, that's a pretty ugly number. That's too many decimal places, so let's move that to 2 decimal places. In order to change the decimal places, we're going to go up here to this number section on our home tab, and we are going to use these 2. This will increase the decimal places, this will decrease it. So let's click this. You'll notice as I click it, it's getting smaller and smaller until I get to 2 decimal places. Okay, let's move on to functions. Functions are very similar to basic formulas, right? When we're doing functions, these are preset formulas essentially within Excel that are going to allow us to do more advanced analysis much faster. So, for example, they want us to sum up all of the numbers in dataset 1. So I know you know how to do the math, and we just learned cell referencing. So 96 plus 86 plus 92 plus, oh, this is tedious, isn't it? Oh, this is taking too long. Oh, yeah, who wants to do all that, right? And then imagine if we had to do data set 2. So yeah, we could do this, but there's a faster way. And this is where functions come into play. When you're doing a function, you're still going to start out with that little equal symbol. But now we're going to type out sum open parenthesis. And with this sum open parenthesis, we'll be able to grab all of these numbers. And you'll notice here it's very small, but it has the number, comma, so on and so forth. But there's actually a faster way than clicking each one individually, because that would basically be what we did before. It's equals sum, open parenthesis, and then click the first number in your data set and drag it all the way down to the last number in your data set. And then you can do a close parenthesis. Let's do it just for good practice. And now it's saying sum all of these numbers. Let's click enter on our keyboard. There's the 606. Same thing for averaging. There's an average function within Excel. You'll notice when I start typing in average, this little function box pops up and there is an average function on there. If we double click the average, notice that it does all the hard part for me. It finishes typing out the function, it gives me my open parenthesis, and now I just have to click and drag. I have my selection, enter. So now, very quickly, I just found the average of those numbers. We can do the same thing here for practice scenario 2C for this bigger data set. Notice that we can just select from corner to corner, right? And technically, we could select in any direction. Let me show you what I mean. Let's start our formula equals sum, open parenthesis, click and drag, or, and notice that's E5 to H12, or click and drag, or click and drag. So it doesn't matter what corner you start with. What matters is that all the data is selected. So once you have your formula in, enter, and now we know the sum is 2,427. Let's do the same thing for the average for data set 2. Well, notice the more you do this, the faster you get. Equals average, open parentheses, select all that data, and enter. And then again, let's practice reformatting that cell to the 2 decimal places. So again, in our numbers section on our home tab, we're going to bring down the decimals until we're at 2 decimal places. Neat and clean. All right, one more, and this is important, and we're getting into some real accounting things here. So order of operations, you've learned about please excuse my dear Aunt Sally back in the day. You probably also had it come up again in one of your algebra classes. But this order of operations is very important in Excel, and I'll show you why in a second. But just a little reminder, order of operations is parentheses are always done first when it comes to math, then exponents, then multiplication, division together from left to right, and addition and subtraction together from left to right. So consider practice scenario 3A. We have a formula here from Accounting 1. Depreciation per year equals cost minus residual value divided by estimated useful life. So if you remember that from Accounting 1, straight line depreciation. You'll notice here that cost, we have the cost, residual value, we have the residual value, and estimated useful life, we have the years. So let's try putting that in as a formula, right? So first things first, cost. Let's click the cost cell. And actually, let me zoom in a bit more. Go away. There we go. All right. So again, equal sign to start our formula. Click on that cost minus residual value divided by estimated useful life. So looking at this, you might notice that there is definitely something wrong here. If we do enter, I'm pretty sure those of you who've finished up Accounting 1, if you're at the end of Accounting 2 at this point, you know there's something wrong here. So in this formula, because of this order of operations, division comes before subtraction. So what they're trying to do in this formula is they're taking 50,000, dividing it by 5, so getting 10,000, and minusing that from 450,000. We know that's not what it's supposed to be doing. We need it to do the subtraction first. Now, how do we do that? With parentheses. So really, this is the part where it's extremely relevant in Excel. We need to make sure that we're conscious of when we have to use parentheses. Because according to this formula, we need it to find the cost minus the residual value first, and then dividing it by the estimated useful life, which gives us 80,000. Now that sounds better. Here in practice scenario 3B, we have a rate of change formula. By the way, this is your horizontal analysis. So this is the horizontal analysis that you learned in chapter 17. So essentially year 2 minus year 1 divided by year 1. So notice that we are trying to analyze cash to determine what the rate of change in cash was during year 2. So let's put the formula in. Year 2 cash minus year 1 cash divided by year 1 cash. And again, here's where we're running into that same issue. We need to find 40,000 minus 50,000 first. So we need to throw that numerator in parentheses. And then once we're done, enter, and you got your result. It went down by 20%. Now, remember back when we were in chapter 17, whenever we did a horizontal analysis, we always had to present it as a percentage, right? So the issue here is this is in decimal, which is fine, but not really how we would want to present it as business professionals, right? We want our reports to be very clear. So what we want to do is we want to change this to be reported as a percentage. Let's do a percentage to 2 decimal places. So it's going to be 20.00% negative. So let's move up here to our number section. Let's click that percentage sign. That brings us to 20%. Then also let's add some zeros. Because as you learned in chapter 17, sometimes they aren't clean percentages. So maybe we're going to do this to more to cash, and we want to see all of those tenths and hundredths. All right. Beautiful job. Now, the more you use Excel, the more comfortable you are going to be with it. Always make sure that when you do have an opportunity to reference a cell, that you go ahead and give it a try. Sometimes some things do have to be hard-coded, but keep in mind when we're using Excel, there are many things that can be considered outputs and many things that you can use a formula to generate the output. So keep practicing. If you ever have questions, let us know. We're happy to help, and keep up the great work. Have a good day, pioneers.